Typically, when editing video, you have as many choices as your frame rate will allow. For example, this clip here is about 24 frames per second, which means that we have 24 editing choices per second. If we had 30 frames per second or 60 frames per second, we would have 30 or 60 choices to make, respectively. Now, most of the time, even 24 frames per second is fine. It's enough choices to get what you need done. But sometimes when you need really precise editing, especially when you're editing dialogue and you maybe need to edit out a word, it helps to be able to edit at the sample rate. So as I mentioned, for this clip here, we have 24 frames per second. So we have 24 different editing possibilities per second. But if we edit at the sample rate, as we can see here, the sample rate is 48K, in other words, 48,000, then that will enable us to have 48,000 editing choices per second, which really allows for very fine and precise editing of video. So here in this clip, let me explain to you what's going on here. The actress says, "Sir," let's just listen to it.
Sir, I'd love to help you with this.
So she basically says, "Sir, I'd love to help you with this." As I mentioned in chapter 1, we were trying to make this movie really, really fast. As it turned out, after she filmed this, we realized that we have far more female voice actresses than male voice actors. So we needed her to not say "sir." And of course, there was no time for us to reshoot this. So what I had to do as the sound guy was to edit out her saying the word "sir." And so I had to get in here, and the frame rate sometimes really just doesn't give us that flexibility. So this little pile of mess right here, this is the word "sir." So we need to get rid of that word "sir." But again, as you can see by these big blocks here, once you zoom in very closely with the plus key, you can see that these big blocks, which is representing from frame to frame, sometimes don't really coincide with what you need to edit. So you go to the flyout menu of the timeline panel over here on the right-hand side of the interface and choose Show Audio Time Units. And as I do this, notice the current time display over here on the left-hand side of the timeline panel. Watch that change. Right now it's showing hours, minutes, seconds, and frames. And once I say Show Audio Time Units, that will change to hours, minutes, seconds, and samples. So now I can click and drag on this, and you can see the current time indicator is barely moving as I'm scrubbing quite wildly on this because we have 48,000 editing choices per second. So it's a lot of control, a lot of flexibility there. So what I might do in this case is untarget the video 1 track and target the audio 1 track. And I'm going to hit Command or Control K on the PC to splice the audio right there. And I'm going to back up a little bit, and I'm going to scrub the audio to see where she starts the S sound. We can't really see that here in the audio waveform, but we can hear it. Right there. You hear that? It's very faint, and I'm sure coming through a training video that's been compressed for web viewing, that might be difficult to hear, but just trust me, it's there. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and hit Command K again to splice that. Making sure that I'm on the right frame before she actually pronounces the S. I'm going to grab this rubber band, and just for time's sake, I'm just going to drag this down to mute this clip. Now, this is not really the focus of this tutorial, so I don't really want to take time to do this, but in a real-world situation, there is basically some audio noise here, even though there's nothing really going on. If I just play that back real quick. See how there's just like some just kind of room tone? Well, what we need to do is copy that room tone over and have this because it's going to sound awkward to go from room tone to silence. But again, that's not really the focus of the tutorial. So what we want to focus on is how accurate we were able to get rid of the "sir" word in the beginning of her statement there. Let's look at that and see how it worked out.
I'd love to help you with this.
Okay, so it sounds now, if you didn't know, and if we had some room tone here, it would sound like she was just saying, "I would love to help you with your problem." I think from a visual standpoint, if you didn't hear the word "sir," that there really wouldn't be any click or a cue to the audience that she actually said something that we removed.
I'd love to help you with this.
And you can get that level of editing by going down to the sample rate level and adjusting and making the necessary edits that you need to. You could also, if we cut too much or didn't cut quite enough here, we could do is select the rolling edit tool, and we can click on this edit point and move this. And as you can see from the tooltip that pops up, we're actually changing this cut point again at the sample level so we can make really precise cuts with the rolling edit tool as well. Now, while this is a very handy trick and sometimes you absolutely desperately need it in order to make the cleanest cuts possible, I don't recommend doing this all the time. I once thought when I found this trick, I was like, I'm going to do this all the time. I'm kind of an audio guy anyways. This makes sense to me. I'll just edit the sample level for everything. But it gets to be too many choices, too confusing, and so I don't recommend always being in this mode. I make the change that I need at the sample rate level, and I go back here and I disable show audio time units.